Okay, so this is looking at the dry run, if you like, of the practical assignment. So what you've been asked to do is in a couple of parts. So we've part 1, part 2, which is effectively the testing of it, and a wee bit of additional functionality and things added in with that at 1 also. So what we'll do in the first video is do part 1, and for the most part what we need to do is go off, create a Java project, and we need to create this particular UML structure. And as you see, there's a few implementation notes in there also. But before we start all that, before we get going, what we need to do is go off and create the package structure and the project as per their instructions here. So create a Java project. The project solution and package folder should both be named P2 and then your student number. No spaces, no underscores, no abbreviations or anything else. P2 and then your student number, like that. Okay, so I'm going to do that. If you get that wrong, again, I will have marking associated with that one. It's very straightforward, and again, sort of thing as an engineer, you've been told to do something, you need to follow some of these instructions. Okay, so this one is definitely by the letter. So it's P2, and for me it's 30, 48, blah blah, whatever it is. Okay, so that's the name of the project. Click on next and finish, and then inside that I need to go to source folder, I need to right click there, I need to go to new, I need to go to package, and that's the name of the package. It's going to follow through with the names. You cannot get this wrong unless you're half asleep. Okay, so here we go. We've got our project, and we've got the project, the package folder within the project, and within the source folder created. That's exactly the structure that you're looking. So before you go ahead, make sure you check in terms of the assessment, make sure you've got that right. Okay, very straightforward. So next thing then, create the following classes as per the UML class diagram. So I'll make it a bit bigger for you to see. So we're going to, first off, we've got a car class, and obviously these other things extend from it. So it's car, family saloon, rally car, and F1. Okay, so things to point out there. Again, this is UML class diagram. You've got 4 classes. That's the name. In here, any of the minuses is saying this is private. These are instance vars. There's the data type for them. There's any particular method. So in this case, if we display all, display all, display all, and a display all in here. If you see the display all appearing here, that what that means is that this one is going to override this one, but we'll see that when we get to the implementation of it. I would, in terms of the assessment, read a wee bit further ahead. So the implementation details, the acceptable range for horsepower. So which one's got horsepower? Horsepower is within the car, so that's going to be applicable to all of these things. But it's saying here that the horsepower, the value should be between 0 and 1000 inclusive, and any attempt to set the value outside this range should result in the value being set to 999. Okay, so in this case we need to be able to control it, so that's important. And the display all method, for each method should display to screen all the instance vars in that particular class to screen, which is fair enough. There's what it's meant to look like. And there's an example for the family saloon. It should be make, model, and horsepower, which comes from these guys, and then metallic paint, which again is just a property of the family saloon. That's a true false, and that's the way we're expecting the thing to come out the screen. Okay, so that's just quite literally horse into it, and we'll get this one done. So cars coming first, and then we'll create these other classes. So start at the top and work your way down. So let's start with right click, brand new class, and this class is called cars. This is one at the top of the pyramid. Don't need a main method, do want to generate comments, and click on finish. Okay, I'm not going to go in and put all the comments in here for the sake of the video, but I am going to ensure, I'm going to suggest that you should do that. What we have here is the car class, and then as you know, we've got the default constructor. So something like that, you would say default constructor. Very straightforward. Okay, don't really need that anymore. We stub a code, just leave that out, and then you would explain what this class is going off and doing. As you know, the instance vars will go here. The instance vars that we need are private, and make is string, model is a string, and horsepower is an int. So private, and it's a private, and it's a string. Okay, string, and that was make. And we've got another private, and it's a string, and it's model. And we've also got another one, which was horsepower. Okay, and it of course is an int, so we need to tell it and set its data type. Okay, so once you've done that, then that just make that bigger so you can see it. That's a good start, because what we can do then is that what we would be expected to do is first off go and create all the getters and setters for that. So I'm going to right click out here, I'm going to go to source, I'm going to go to generate getters and setters, I'm going to select all those values, I'm going to click on OK. So it's actually doing it for you. Again, I would suggest that you put a wee bit of a comment onto these, just say this gets the horsepower, this sets the model, this gets the model of the car, etc. Okay, so again, it takes you not a long time to do it, but you would be expected to put those sort of comments on at this stage of your development. I've also got a default constructor here. I could type the thing out by hand. Hello, I think I'd be happy enough just to go to source, and I'll go generate constructor from fields. So basically what that's going to do is create the constructor with arguments for us. Just click on OK, and there's our constructor with fields. We don't need that super in there in this occasion, because the base class for this is the object, and we don't really care about that one, but in terms of this class. But that pretty much is everything in terms of the setup that would be required. We have another thing then to deal with, and we'll go back to the implementation rules, and it's saying that the acceptable range for horsepower is between 0 and 1,000. That's a validation of business rule that we need to be aware of and to do something with. So, excuse me, I drink my coffee. So the next thing we need to do is put that validation in. Any attempt to set the value outside this range should result in being set to, what's basically an error code there, -999. Okay, so it can be different, maybe look different in the assessment, but it'll be a variation on a theme. Okay, so where's the best place for us to put that? As we've done quite a few times in the lecture now, what we're talking about is that we need to put a validation in here. Okay, so we want to say that if someone attempts to set the horsepower, we'll only do it if the value that's been sent in other words, horsepower being the value that's been sent in as a parameter argument, if it's greater than or equal to 0, again, let's go back and check what it asked us for. 0 to 1,000 inclusive. So I'm happy enough to say it needs to be greater than or less than, and horsepower is less than or equal to 1,000. Okay, so that's going to include it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to actually set the horsepower. Otherwise, what we're going to do is, and the only thing it asked us to do in this case is then set it to that almost error code value, -999. Okay, okay, folks. So that's pretty much all we need to do with it. Okay, that's in terms of the coding. That's probably pretty good in terms of the validation. One thing I would, or one thing we do need to do here is that although that's going to allow us to block anyone using the setter, don't forget that we have a constructor created that accesses that value and sets it directly. So instead of doing that, what we're going to do on this occasion is we're going to go to set horsepower rather than set it directly. And what that means is it's going to engage with the validation for the horsepower. Okay, so I'm really spelling that out for you there. Okay, you'll definitely need to ensure you do that. Otherwise, you allow someone to create a class and set it up with an odd value outside the range, and that's not a good place to be, because it's going to bypass your validation rules. Okay, so that's that one. Next one it asked us to do was a display all. So a display all method for each class, you display the screen all the instance vars for that particular class. For example, for a family saloon, it should display make, model, horsepower and metallic paint, because that's an additional class. An example output for the family saloon is this. So obviously we're getting the class name there, then we're getting make, model, horsepower and metallic paint. Okay, so in terms of what we've got here, we've got a car class, family, rally and F1. So really what we'll do here is we'll make life easier for the next classes by creating the display all method here. So it's public, it's void, and it's called display all. So it's not called show me all or anything else, it's called display all. It takes no arguments, but it will do some work when we get in between these two curlies here. Again, give yourself a decent opportunity there to comment on this method. Will output to screen the following or all instance vars. That would be good enough. Okay, so system without that print line, all we need to really do here is follow what we've been told to. So the car class then should go make Audi model a 3 horsepower. So in other words, we want make, and then in terms of formatting, there's probably one tab in there. But if you're asked to format it a wee bit better, you might get an opportunity to do that. Okay, so the first thing it asks for is make. I'll try a tab and see what that does for it. We can always play about with it. And what I want to do is output that value. So this dot make will give us that particular value. Okay, so I'm gonna use that as a variation on a theme. So we'll make model. Again, I'm being accurate because I've been given an output that's expected there. So it's make model and then horsepower. So make model, and that's the model, and this one is horsepower. And again, I'll be incredibly accurate in terms of horse, and there's no space, and there's a POWER. Okay, so just be accurate with those things, especially when you give an output, expected output, this dot horsepower. Okay, so that should put it out the screen for us. Don't really need any more formatting there, I don't think, but it should give us most of the information that we need. Yep, that should be pretty spot on for that. Now, next thing we need to do, and I really only need to show the rest of these things are variation on a theme. I need to look at this family saloon one. I'll do that one because it'll give you the output from that, and then we'll add in the other classes. I don't even necessarily need to do it on the video, but let's go family saloon. Metallic paint boolean display all method overriding this one, and there's a connection here obviously. So let's go off and do that. Save where I am. I make sure you do save it as you go along. And when we get there, what we're going to do is we're going to go off and we'll create a brand new class, and not interface, a brand new class. So right click there, go to new, go to class, and then go to new, go to class, and then go to family saloon. Okay, so family saloon, and the super class for that one is obviously car. Okay, so there's no point in starting that whole thing from scratch. You'd be mad to do so because the car has got near enough everything we need apart from metallic paint, so you'd be crazy if you went off and started that from scratch. So go off with super classes, car, family saloon, constructors, inherited abstract methods don't matter so much for us here, generate comments, and we'll go with that. Okay, so we've got a car now, family saloon. You'll see that what we have is public class family saloon extends car, that makes that connection. Make sure you put your comments in. This is our default constructor. Let us know that you know what that is so we can acknowledge that you do in terms of marking. So default constructor. And we've also got a constructor created, which is the constructor with args. So that's constructor with args, etc. Okay, so make sure you put a decent comment in there. Now, just going to get rid of that a wee second. Remember then that what's just happened with this constructor with args is that it's created the arguments that it's aware of at the minute that are going to be needed to set up this class, which are the make, model, and horsepower, which of course comes from here. Now, rather than have all of this again in terms of the setup, this dot model, this dot make for the family saloon, the sensible way of doing that is to use super, and the word super then says, look, just pass up to the constructor, the superclass constructor, pass up the make and model and horsepower, and it'll go off and set that off for us, which is perfect. But that's not the job really done for us here at the minute because we have other things to do. The other things are that we need to put in a new instance var, and that instance var is a boolean, and it was metallic paint. Metallic paint. In other words, does it have or does it not have metallic paint? Okay, so put that in. Feel free to put a sort of comment on it if you wish. You don't have to in terms of java.comments for these things, but you definitely need a getter and a setter. So you go, and you definitely need to put in a few comments on that. Okay, definitely put something in there. No validation rules required for this one. I'll nip back just to show you the car one a wee second now that it's in place. Once we have that set horsepower put in place, what we really should do is tell the user or anybody that's going to use the class that we actually have a criteria to say it should be between 0 and 100. So in terms of that parameter, we should say should be between 0 and 100 inclusive, etc. Okay, so you could definitely, I'm not typing very well today, you should definitely put something like that again in, and you'll see in a wee second where that comes up in the UML when someone goes to use this particular class. Okay, that's an aside. Let's go back to this. So family saloon, we have got metallic paint in, we've got a getter and a setter in, which is great, but we've also got a constructor that doesn't deal with the metallic paint at the minute. So we're going to have to put that one in by hand. So metallic paint, there's the name of it. And what we've now got is it's going to set up the make, the model and the horsepower, but we would like the constructor to set up and deal with the metallic paint for us. So we've got it passed in as a parameter argument. Now we have the thing set. So we're doing it directly rather than call the setter in this case, because there's no validation rules, and that's more efficient than calling the setter because that's a method call. This is a direct assignment, which is quicker, less memory. Okay, that's that part of it. The next thing then we need to deal with is the display all method, and the display all method is very similar. Just doing a Control S to save there. The display all method is going to look very similar to that, but what it's going to need to do is override this. But in the end we're going to actually use part of this because it has a lot of the properties in terms of the printout, make, model and horsepower that we need for this one, but we also need to put out this metallic paint value too. So let's go off and do that then. So this is our display all method here, so I'm just going to copy that, and there are other mechanisms of doing this, but I'm just going to really explain it out. So let's go with this. So display all method, now that again it's worth putting in the @override symbol, and the @override, I'm on a different keyboard here, @override lets the compiler know that this is going to override the previous classes or the super classes display all method, so it knows to call it at that particular point. Now you'll notice what's just happened here. If you leave it the way it is there, because you're in the subclass, even though this .make comes from the superclass, you can't call it directly, so you would have to call the getter and the setter, because these things are set private and it's only within that particular class, the car class, that you can see that. So that's not good. You'd have to go and change all that. However, this is all a bit of work that we already need. So if I was to call super and go dot, you'll see that's the display all method that belongs to the car class, which is this one. So when we come into this class, we would like it to call that. So it'll call up here, print out make, model and horsepower of the family saloon, or whatever's been set up in the family saloon, and then we want to go off and make it do something something in terms of metallic paint, which is specific to this this car. Okay, so I'm just going to type that in just to speed things up a wee bit. You Control T. So again, just be consistent what you've been asked to do in terms of the output. I'm not madly going into it here because I want to keep the video as brief as I can, and from here I want to go this dot metallic paint. Okay, now don't forget also that you do have another wee thing going on there. I did ask you to put out the name of that particular class. So in this case, how would you do something like that? I would probably put it in there, just embed out that print line and put in there family, what is this one, family saloon. Okay, that for the most part is roughly what you're going to almost repeatedly do for each one of the classes. There isn't really much more in terms of implementation details in this one. You may find in the assessment there is a wee bit more implementation required, and maybe a bit less down here. It's much of a much. So your next stage then would be to do the rally car and do the Formula 1 car exactly the same as the family saloon. And with the rally car you have an additional property there, which is area, and the Formula 1 you've got area also with it. So both of these things got area, and both of them have a display all method. Okay, I'll call that one, I'll put a pause on that one. I'm going to go off and create these things, and then when we start the video again we will look at these the car factory class and the testing of it.